Herbalism at its finest with Mason Hutchinson. Yeah.
All right, there we go. So I'm sitting down with Mason Hutchison. So for those of you who don't know Mason, he is the founder of HerbRally, a podcast and platform connecting people with events and education from all walks of life. And thanks to the power of the internet from anywhere across the globe. I'm here in Canada. Of course, Mason's in the US. And if you haven't had the chance to check out his work yet, I'd highly recommend it. I'm such a huge fan of the podcast already. And since connecting with you directly, I've gone on to obviously explore the platform now as well. And it just is such a great collaborative wealth of knowledge. And you know, I've only probably touched the tip of the iceberg so far. So there's so much more to explore. And I know previous to this, you worked for Mountain Rose for 11 years, completed 2 herbal apprenticeships, and co-organized one of the longest standing events in the US, which is all fantastic. And of course, the list goes on. I know you're also a father and a husband, and you know we have many titles we give ourselves. But needless to say, you've been such an active member within the herbal community and continue to hold space for so many others to do the same, which I commend you for. And I'm one of those community members. But I'm so curious, and we got talking a little bit last time, but what first brought you to herbal medicine, and where did this journey begin for you? Feel free to not spare any details. I'm so
Thank you for that intro. It's really cool to hear other people describe it, because sometimes you find yourself like, I don't know, you're just kind of in it and you're like, I'm just doing what I do because I love it. But yeah, I guess it is significant for other people. And it always brings me so much joy to know that other people are getting value out of what we're producing here at HerbRally. So thanks. As far as what brought me to herbalism, I don't remember what I told you in our last conversation, but this may be, you know, different than what you were expecting. But I would say nutrition by way of, and I don't want to say this term like lightly, depression. I had a really just strong, I'd say, like sadness early on. And I remember learning what you consume, what you put in your body actually has an effect on your mood. And I'm sure it's so obvious to so many people, but I didn't really realize that as a late teen, you know, early 20s. And so I started becoming much more conscious about what I put into my body. I developed a really strong passion for nutrition, fitness, and all that stuff. And over time, I learned about, you know, the healing uses of herbs, especially like your Chinese tonic herbs, adaptogens, and all that. And so that was kind of my gateway into herbalism, was via nutrition.
That's so cool. I love to hear that. And I think that's such a great point to, you know, jump off of, because I totally believe that. And I've, you know, of course, it took me also a period of time to get there too, but realizing that we are what we eat at the end of the day. And so much of what we put into our bodies, well, everything that we put into our bodies affects the way we think, the way we behave, and the way we exist in this world, you know? And I think it's funny if we can go back to a place of living with that at the forefront of everything we put in our body. I think that's such a powerful way to, or place to exist from. And, you know, it puts the responsibility in our hands, which of course is a bit of an endeavor, but at the same time, it gives us the power and the tools to take with life what you will, you know? So I think that's such a really cool thing. And it's cool to hear that that's kind of what brought you to herbal medicine. So with that, from speaking of ideas and fruition, can you tell us what that journey looked like from idea to fruition for HerbRally?
Yeah. So as you mentioned in my intro, I worked for Mountain Rose Herbs. I was essentially in the marketing department, but I was helping mostly with events for most of my time there. And so I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if there was a website that listed all of the herbalism events? I know lots of other communities have event boards online, and I found bits and pieces here and there, like, you know, announcing all the major herb conferences and stuff like that. But there wasn't something that I could search for that listed all the herb walks and just little plant talks and, you know, the smaller cities and stuff like that. So I just decided I was going to be the one to make this website. And so what happened was, well, first it's like, idea generation for the name, and I sat on that forever. And originally I was like, oh, herbalismevents.com. And I was like, that's so boring. So I had like a list of ideas, and I sent it out to my friends and family. I was like, what do you think is a good name? HerbRally was my favorite, and HerbRally was one of them. And sure enough, I just went with that, but again, I bought the domain herbrally.com, and I just sat on it for probably a year because I kept having this like perfectionism in my head. I kept thinking, how am I going to make this perfect right from the get? And then it just dawned on me, I should probably just start and then improve it over time. So what I did was it was so simple. And I know there's websites you could go to look at early versions of websites. And it's, they say if you're not embarrassed by your first, stint, then you started too late. So I'm happy to say I'm embarrassed by the first iteration of HerbRally, but essentially all it was a list of events. And I knew about these events because I subscribed to tons of herbal newsletters, and I was just so immersed in that scene. So yeah, it really just started by listing events.
That is so cool. And you know what the cool thing about that too, it just makes me think of a personal experience that I have that's very similar, that kind of got me to the herbal practice in general. I mean, I think it started, I think it starts off when we're kids, playing around the sandbox. I truly think it begins right from, basically inception, but later on in life anyways, once you go through the period of figuring out yourself and finding your way, and as we're continuing to do, I guess, for the rest of our lives. But I remember being a part of this, this personal growth Facebook group at the time, and this goes back more than a decade ago. And it was a herbalist doing a plant walk. And I just thought, well, that sounds cool, and so it really speaks to the need. And sometimes people don't know what they're interested in until they try it. And, I did that and instantly fell in love. So, for all the people that are finding their very first events and stuff like that, all through HerbRally, I think it's so cool that you have this place and space that exists for people to find different opportunities that are in their area.
And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the HerbRally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at HerbRally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from HerbRally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.